All right, well, I got the new Ford F-150 Limited here. Let's take this bad boy out for a little spin. What do you say? Quick look at the whole interior here before we go. These are the seats. And let me set up the cameras and we can be on our way. Okay, so inside of the brand new Ford F-150 Limited, this is the 2019 model. I did actually drive the Raptor previously. I did do a review on it, and I can leave a link up to above, but make sure you watch that after you watch this first impressions. But I'm personally pretty excited for this because the Raptor is not a normal truck, and honestly, neither is this. But I really wanted to try out like an XLT or something like that with the 5-liter. But before we get started, let me just turn this bad boy over and yeah, because it is just way too hot right now. And of course this thing has every little trinket and luxury feature. Of course, I especially like this the door handle, some of the best in the business. All right, now that we finally have this thing started up, I don't have to sweat in here. But yeah, like I was saying, I already drove the Raptor, but that's not exactly, you know, like driving a normal F-150. So this isn't normal. This thing has like 22-inch rims on it, so that's you know, we're gonna see how this thing rides, but I'm sure it'll do just fine regardless. But I'm just saying, this is not a car or a truck that everybody can afford. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about who this is kind of for, and obviously, like always, I'm always going to have a full in-depth review coming up as well that covers all the interior and, you know, rear legroom and all that good stuff and some of the other features. This is just going to be a quick first drive, if you will. So let's go ahead and let's just start rolling, and we'll go from there. And before we do, this thing does have 9,200 miles, so it'll be a good test to see how this thing is like in terms of creaks and rattles, because it was driven by a bunch of angry journalists. So let's go ahead and let's get on the road. And this vehicle is fitted with the EcoBoost engine, not the V8 or anything like that. Well, it's pretty smooth. The steering is really, really light in this truck, unlike the Raptor I was in. And another thing I wanted to mention, but I was too stupid to. We owned the Tundra, a 2010 Tundra. I've driven a 2019 Tundra, and I've driven a 2019 Ram 1500. And I have also driven the Raptor, and now this. And I will be, after I do a review on this thing, I'm going to go to a GMC dealership in South Point, Durham, to review a GMC 1500, basically, to get an even better perspective on all these vehicles, because at that point I would have driven all of these trucks, except for the Nissan, which I don't think a lot of you care about, but we'll see. So already just effortless power. This is the high output 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6, exact same engine out of the Raptor. So punch should be, you know, pretty extraordinary, just like it is in that vehicle. And you know, that felt pretty good there, but it doesn't quite have, you know, that same turbo spooling sound that the Raptor had. So I guess they tuned that a little bit differently, but the velocity is pretty much the exact same. And I'll address this right off the bat. I actually like the way this EcoBoost sounds. I really don't mind it at all. I think it has a nice growl to it, nice tone, honestly. It's about as good as it's going to get for a V6. And, you know, this is part of the reason why I wanted to try out the V8, because it's, you know, obviously it's different. It's a V8. And what's interesting is they're kind of cutting back production on the V8s because not too many people are buying them. They are more interested in this EcoBoost because I guess people think you get better gas mileage in this. That's not true. But, you know, this is a pretty huge truck, and I just got into this, and I'm just driving it like I've owned this for my entire life, basically. I haven't. This is my legit first drive in this vehicle. Overall, first thoughts, this is a really smooth experience. I'm about to get this on the highway a little bit and see how the road noise and all that stuff is, because currently, as it says, the Ram 1500 is actually my most favorite truck that I've ever driven. That thing felt like you were in a pretty much like a Mercedes GLE or something like that, like a luxury SUV. That's kind of what that Ram mimicked. And Ram is trying to be that luxury truck, and that's fine. But honestly, all of these trucks ride really good. I obviously haven't driven the Chevy or the GMC or whatever you want to call it, but they all do. Even the Tundra, I mean, everything does. And the Tundra is kind of like that old school truck. Yeah, I just went over some railroad bumps there. Now, honestly, it's really not too bad. Like, It's obviously a body-on-frame vehicle, but honestly handling itself just fine over these bumps and all that stuff. And you know, the American trucks in particular, they've come a long way. I mean, like I said with the Ram, I mean, like they're luxury cars basically. I think the biggest advantage that this has compared to the Raptor is that the road noise, and I guess, you know, tire noise and all that stuff, far less with this vehicle. I mean, when I had the Raptor, obviously that thing is sitting on some massive tires, and it just was not the most refined experience ever. And nice, just had some effortless passing power there. I will say though, I think I kind of like the power delivery in this a little bit better. There's not quite as much lag in this compared to the Raptor, which is kind of strange to me. So yeah, this thing handles and turns here. Definitely not as intimidating as the Raptor, because that thing with the fender flares and all that stuff, far larger vehicle. Yeah, like, oh my god, dude, this feels so much better to me than the Raptor. That's such a strange sensation, honestly. It's still got that same 10-speed automatic, which I wasn't a huge fan of in the Raptor, but in that vehicle, it was just so damn gear hunty for some reason. And I mean, this just isn't. It just feels so much more natural, this 10-speed. Once I spend a whole week with this vehicle, I'm going to report to you what my like real-world fuel efficiency kind of is with this truck. But I have to say, handling-wise, all that stuff, that's pretty much on par with the Raptor. If not, this is a little bit better because obviously it's got the 22-inch rims on it, so a little bit less meat on the tires. So obviously the steering response is going to be a little bit better, of course. And I have to say the braking feel is very similar to the Raptor. I have a lot of confidence driving this truck, but so far nothing really to set this apart from the competition that I've driven. Got a little wheel spin there. Yeah, sensation of speed and all that is far more reduced in this vehicle. It's like much more like a luxury truck driving experience with this. Just smooth power delivery, and it's got a lot more isolation in this truck than it does in the Raptor or even in the Tundra. Doing about 60 miles per hour now. Only a slight hint of wind noise, which I really appreciate that. There is a bit of tire noise coming in though, but not anything like the Raptor, though, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, so far this has been an extremely soft riding vehicle that just handles extremely well, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that, you know, the F-150 really truly is just one of the most technologically advanced trucks, I think, because they're the only truck, and really Ford right now is really the only company who has the capabilities of doing this, and that's, they have the only like all aluminum made truck because they sell over 1 million of these. So they have that advantage of mass production, where since they're selling like 1 million, they can actually afford to, you know, get the cost down on aluminum and actually make all their trucks out of aluminum. That's why they didn't make a Focus RS or a Fiesta all aluminum, because they don't sell as many. In fact, that they're cutting production on those vehicles. This though, you know, with the all aluminum body, it's definitely the like lightest truck, that's for sure. The other trucks are working on being a lighter vehicle, but this did it first back in like 2015, I think. Little M3 in front of me. You can't get away from me, not in this truck. Honestly, yeah, this has been like one of the best like V6 experiences I've ever had. This truly does replace a V8 engine. I have to try out their 5-liter Coyote engine. Got up to 65 miles per hour, but yeah, this is so effortless. You really don't need a V8 when you're in this thing. Granted, this is the high output V6. This is not like the 2.7 liter or the other one that's underneath this. This does make 450 horsepower and 510 pounds-feet of torque. That's part of the reason why this is so effortless. The stability at high speeds at 65, 70 miles per hour, just like the Raptor, you know, there was no issues there. Yeah, you get a little bit more wind noise, but really nothing that's out of the ordinary for a pickup truck, basically. This is about the same as the Tundra I was in, and Ram 1500 is still definitely a little bit more quieter than this, but all extremely well done trucks, man. I mean, they're you know who this is for. This is pretty much for the guy who's actually got a lot of money, but he doesn't want to flex it like that. He doesn't want to go out and cop an S-Class or a 7 Series or, you know, an Audi or whatever, and but he still wants a really nice car. this is what he kind of goes for. Because these trucks, man, they cost a whole lot of money, and they're basically like luxury cars, but you're not flaunting your wealth when you buy one of these things, which is cool. Yeah, definitely a lot of road noise, but man, this thing is so easy to drive, dude. This thing handles itself extremely well. Taking these corners at like 50 plus miles per hour, no issues. Rear wheel drive, of course, so you're always going to get that tires squeak there. Yeah, I'm really digging the brakes on this. But honestly, you know, all the trucks are really good, man. Like, there is no such thing as a bad truck in this market. I mean, I really like this, but I'm just trying to think, like, what does this truck do better than the other ones? I mean, right now, I mean, this limited model, like, price is obviously not an advantage for this truck, but I guess they get props for making the most badass V6 on the market, that's for sure. And, you know, when you go over some, like, really kind of, like, you know, pothole stuff, I mean, you definitely do get a pretty jarring sound, and you definitely do notice it through the cabin, but, I mean, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. And this is part of the reason why, you know, I kind of want to try out an XLT with 18-inch wheels. It's always going to ride a little bit more softer than this. And also, it's going to be like half the price of this. I've seen XLT V8s go for like 35 grand. Granted, they're like, you know, no push button start. They're like, you know, they have a key. You know, God forbid you have to turn a key, right, in a truck. You know, it's got the V8 engine, of course, and cloth seats. But let's see, you know, this is a really good handling truck for sure. Definitely hustling this thing through, and it's got a pretty phenomenal turn-in. I just, like, I mean, I was whipping the Raptor too, but, like, due to the fact that this is not quite as wide as that vehicle, I am just, like, able to throw this thing around like no issues. I guess that's one big advantage that this truck has. This is really easy to get used to. The Ram 1500 on the outside looks pathetic, like not a big vehicle, but honestly, when I was sitting in the Raptor, I felt like, when I was sitting in the Ram 1500, I felt like I was sitting in a Raptor, which is quite a paradox. I didn't really understand that. It felt so substantial on the inside. This is a big truck on the inside, don't get me wrong, all the trucks are huge inside, but I don't know why, I'm just able to whip this so easily. Like, it's really crazy. So I'm really enjoying that aspect of this truck. I guess that's one pretty big advantage that this truck has. And because they're, you know, they're selling 1 million of these things, you know, reliability is pretty much justified, I guess. Obviously the Tundra is, you know, that's what it's known for, but the Fords, they seem to be the other truck that's holding up pretty good, I guess, for most people. If you own one of these F-150 trucks, definitely let me know in the comment section below how it's been treating you, because I'm always been very curious about these F-150s and how they've been holding up for people. Yeah, I'm really liking the way this thing turns in. It's just turns in on a dime, really easy vehicle to operate in and out of traffic. I really should not be having any issues driving this thing. This front dash here is giving me a few very minor creaks and rattles when I go over some rough pavement, but otherwise this truck seems to be pretty solid and put together pretty well, not too bad. Overall, it seems really solid in here. I'm actually thoroughly impressed with this truck. It's really not too bad. I mean, it's 70 grand. I mean, I kind of knew I was going to be impressed with it. I better be impressed at 70 grand. But again, this is not the vehicle I would advise somebody buying. I mean, if you don't need all these features, you can save so much more money. But I understand if you want this engine. I'm just kind of disappointed that I haven't driven the 5-liter V8 yet to kind of see if this EcoBoost is better than that V8. Obviously, I love the V8s in the 5.7 Hemi, as well as the 5.7 liter iForce in the Tundra. Those are great motors. Which one's faster? I mean, honestly, I think this is the fastest truck for sure. When those turbos kick in, which there's not a lot of delay with this truck. Again, that's probably one of my most favorite things about this particular trim with this engine and trans. It's not like the Raptor, I'll tell you that much. This definitely picks up and goes so much better. Brakes really well too. Like, the sensation of speed in this is so much less. Like, you really can't tell like what kind of speed you're going in this. I'm always kind of finding myself doing like 10-15 over the speed limit with this thing and not really even noticing. So that's impressive. Going on some more railroad bumps. Yeah, you know, you definitely do feel. I mean, it's a body-on-frame vehicle. What are you going to expect? Just on our F-150 roll by, and this is kind of going to be like the last thing I'm going to mention. You know, this truck has no real presence. Like, I know looks are very subjective, but you're spending 70 grand on this thing, and nobody's going to know it, and nobody's really going to care. This is not like the Raptor. Like, even the Raptor, honestly, like if you get like a black one or something, nobody really pays attention to it. It just looks like a big fat truck on the road. Honestly, my most favorite looking trucks, not even favorites, just the ones that have the most amount of presence are the Silverado, the new one. Even though a lot of people say they don't like the way that looks, that demands a lot of attention, and so does the Tundra, because the Tundra is actually pretty huge in this segment, actually. It's like at least design-wise, it looks very substantial. I just like the look of it. This and the Ram, it has no real presence on the road, and people are spending big racks on these limited models, and it definitely doesn't show. But again, you know, if you're the type of person who wants a big fat luxury vehicle and you don't want to flex your money, well, these trucks are pretty amazing for that, because you have a very luxurious interior on the inside here, which I'm going to go through in the full review. But it's also going to be very easy to live with. It's been very manageable for me to drive in and out of these tight curvy roads and all that through traffic with a bunch of idiots. The steering feels absolutely phenomenal. I like the weight of this thing. It's really very appropriate for it, and has a great feel to it as well. So that's kind of been my first impressions of this truck. Let me know down in the description box below if you own one of these things, if you have driven this and driven some of the other competitor trucks, what you guys think, what's your favorite truck, and see you guys on the next video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.